Howdy, I'm Garrett Crooks, and I'm going to be giving a presentation over Hurricane Harvey and EMS and how it worked within the scope of ICS in its response. So, for some background, Hurricane Harvey made landfall in August of 2017 as a Category 4 hurricane. It had major impacts across all of the state of Texas, particularly in the hurricane regions of Texas. Winds reached up to 130 plus miles per hour, and in many locations they had 60 inches of rain. This displaced many people, about 780,000 people displaced from their homes, and 42,000 people were left having to take shelter in public shelter areas. All in all, from the storm, about $125 billion worth of damages occurred and 94 deaths according to FEMA in 2018. So I'll read this to you. The Incident Command System is a single standardized emergency management system designed to allow users to adopt an integrated organizational structure equal to the complexity and demands of any size or type of emergency incident. It functions to incorporate and fully utilize all assigned resources and expertise from multiple agencies and can operate in a multi-jurisdictional environment. Now, obviously, with a Category 4 hurricane on the way, Texas implemented this far before the hurricane hit in preparation for what was to come. The largest organization, if you want to look at it from a government perspective, on the top was the Texas Incident Management Team. And what that did was it brought all sorts of different large Texas organizations together to basically form a coalition that would kind of trickle down into branches and branches of different pockets of ICS, essentially. The use of ICS and NIMS principles were evident. There was an early activation of command, obviously. It's examples is a place like Harris County, where Houston is, and Montgomery County. They made use of multiple different agencies, of course. So in my research, I found that a good example of an ICS that maybe someone that I would be involved in, or many of my peers, was the Montgomery County Hospital District EMS. So this is a non-fire EMS. It's in the north side of Houston, and it covers about 600,000 residents. MedCom, which is short for Medical Command, was activated and took over the role of a medical control lead of ICS. All available personnel were brought in, so all EMS people were brought into their stations, and they were provided food, accommodations, and abilities to stay, and basically had everything they need to operate at their best function. And all vehicles were prepped, boats were prepped, and in the best way they could, given the storm conditions, air medical was also ready to go whenever needed. So, obviously, there were still things to overcome. One of the issues was flooding, and road closures were constantly changing depending on the rising water levels and how much damage had occurred. So, and another issue that they ran into was misinformation on shelter capabilities, on how much they could treat and how many people they could be holding at a given time. Command staff from all departments would meet twice a day to work on the issue of the flooding roads and letting people in operations know, hey, this is where you got to go, you got to avoid this area. And they would get that information from command staff in operations, like your supervisors in EMS and whatnot. And so then they would trickle that information back down to operations and the people, riding the ambulances, getting the patients, going to the patients and being like, hey, you're not gonna be able to make it there, or hey, if you're gonna go that way, if you're gonna try to get to the hospital, you're gonna have to go this way, and change it up. One of the things that they found in the after action report, though, is that the shelters needed to be more clear on what they were capable of, not only given the population of how many people they can handle, but also what kind of medical care they could provide, given that they didn't want to overflow the hospitals with every case of everyone needing medical attention. So the Houston Fire Department was another example I looked at. The highest volume of calls they got for emergencies was 56,000 in 15 hours. Houston Fire Department set up a command system of EMS directors at George R. Brown Convention Center. big convention center in Houston. Med Control took over EMS command on site, and then the EMS supervisors took over specifically the transport branch of the incident command system. What they had done in preparation for the coming storm was that they turned this convention center into not only a shelter, but also a place where people with chronic issues who were definitely going to have issues during this event were going to have to come, and they can get the basic care they needed to be okay for the storm, as opposed to letting chronic patients flood the hospitals when there were acute cases that needed to be taken care of. It was also a smart idea to put EMS in charge of transport, because then they could truly decide who needed to be sent to the hospital as opposed to who could have made it just by staying in the shelter. So I just thought those were two good examples of some EMS systems and ICS systems that myself could be involved in, or someone like my peers could be involved in at some point in time. So the incident command system was set early and organized during the build up towards Hurricane Harvey. While things could obviously always be better and things could always be changed in, hindsight 2020, there is a lot of good that came out from the ICS, a lot of good organizational skills, and of course EMS personnel on the ground doing the best they could to provide the care to the most that they could. I thought this was an interesting topic to do because I grew up in Orange, Texas, and during this time I still lived with my parents. I was 17, and I got to witness it firsthand. At the time, looking around, it was like, oh, this is, well, kind of neat, looking at how, much a storm can really do. These are pictures here. You can see the floodwaters. This was a week. These are pictures I have on my phone still from that time. This is a week after the events of the major storm hitting, and you can see water still like 2 feet high, getting into people's homes. Obviously, these people were long evacuated at this point, but it was still in homes. And you had things like the military landing helicopters in the street. And while it was cool to get off of school for 2 months during senior year, now I look at it in the scope of, okay, well, now this is me putting boots on the ground and having to deal with something like this. Now, while I may never be in a position of incident command, I do recognize the importance that we need strong leadership and an organized group of people that allow us to not have to worry so much about the big picture, and they worry about that while we can be on the ground taking orders and giving people the best care and rescuing people to the best of our abilities. So that is my presentation over Hurricane Harvey and EMS and how it interacted with the ICS to make the best out of a bad situation. These are my citations. Thank you very much.